Hi, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about Simmons Insight. Simmons is a platform or a company that gathers data from a panel of about 25,000 consumers every 6 months and again every year. One is a short form survey, one is a long form survey. It combines the results into a database. Thus, navigating a large database with hundreds or thousands of variables can be daunting. It provides that information to us through a easy to navigate interface. Let's take a look at that interface then. To access this interface, we're going to visit the Pace University library. On the Pace Library homepage, you can navigate to the search boxes. From there, go over to the Databases tab. From here, select S for Simmons Insight. Once you locate Simmons, click on that, and you'll be able to then access the Simmons platform. Make note of the database you're using. Here it says Spring 2019 Simmons Connect Plus. This is the most recent data available at the time of this recording. Granted, this is not today's data or even last year's data. This is because the educational version of Simmons only offers us slightly dated information. The current data costs more money. But this should be okay, because for the most part, for most things that don't change at a rapid pace, that don't change very rapidly, for them, this data will still be reliable. For example, if you're looking at use of shoes or brand of shoes chosen by people, or their attitudes towards recycling, for example, you wouldn't expect much change from 1 year to the next. Right now, we're in the Crosstab view of Simmons. That's what it opens up in by default. What we're going to do here is something that's, marketers do very commonly, is they examine groups of people called market segments and compare them. What we're going to engage in here is we're going to compare and contrast consumers of two different products. Over the last couple of years, there has been a movement or excitement around frozen yogurt. So it occurred to me, why don't we compare and contrast those who like frozen yogurt versus those who prefer traditional yogurt. I'm sorry, traditional ice cream, excuse me. Those who eat frozen yogurt and those who eat dairy-based ice cream. Or regular ice cream. No. Right, so what I'm going to do here to get started is give you a little lay of the land out here. We are going to build out here a crosstab by constructing some variables that will fit into the column section and rows section. We'll create the variables by looking for them here, moving them to the variable view, verifying them, and then bumping them over to either rows or columns to build our crosstab. When we're done doing this, we'll hit the run button to run the analysis and then examine the spreadsheet of results or crosstab results. To get us started, let's do a search of frozen yogurt to see what comes up. When I do a search of frozen yogurt, it's by default going to look for answers only, so nothing shows up. If I select all out here, that's questions and answers, it'll look for the keyword phrase frozen yogurt in both questions and answers. From the options that pop up, I'm going to select frozen yogurt store-bought. And from here, look for frozen yogurt store-bought, types MO, eat. There we have it. Yes. Okay. So here we have the responses of yes to the survey question, frozen yogurt, store-bought, eat. I'll drag and drop this in the box below and call these people Froyo or Froyo consumers. Now the name FRZYOGY, just in case you're curious, refers to the column in the large spreadsheet I alluded to earlier. Now that we built out the Froyo consumers profile or variable, I'll verify this just to make sure there's no syntactical error. I know there isn't one because there's a green box outlining or green outline around the text box here. Next, I want to bump this over to columns. So what I'll do is I'll click on the column icon here to move Froyo to columns. There we have it. Next, I'm going to go and look for ice cream, traditional ice cream, that is. I'll type that in the search bar to see what comes up. Ice cream. And again, look for that in all. The result shows us there's food frozen, food general, food snack, dessert. Let me go to food frozen. It's likely to be there. Maybe not. Okay. Maybe I go to food snack dessert then. Here we have it, ice cream. And we have the option here, ice cream household eats. I found the yes option. Let me drag yes over to the text box below and call this ice cream consumers. And again, verify this and bump this over to columns. So part of our crosstab is done. We have the two columns ready to go. Our next step is to now think about what do we want to compare them based on. At this point, all we have is information about Froyo consumers and ice cream consumers. Next, we're going to identify a set of variables to compare and contrast these two segments on. Now, you may want to think about, again, what do you think they may potentially differ in terms of? So I came up with a few. I'm sure you have your own also. What about marital status? You think Froyo consumers might be more likely to be married, and ice cream consumers, or rather, Froyo consumers more likely to be unmarried, and ice cream consumers married. Let's see. Do a search here for marital status and see what comes up. Marital status, marital, and here we are. And on demographics, personal information, I'll look for marital status of respondent. Notice I'm using marital status respondent, not head of household. And now here we have options that are kind of, you wouldn't think about this as, so complicated, but marital status can be really complicated because people could be married, widowed, divorced, separated, never married, not married at all, and so on. So in a sense, the married option is just one, but then there are many other options for people who are not married. And then, of course, they're missing one that, like people on a break. I guess that's where separated comes in. Okay, so I'll drag presently married down here and identify these people as being married. Okay. So keeping it very simple out here, we'll create a variable called married that identifies people who are just that, married. I'll move this variable to rows. There we have it. Next, let's compare these people on gender also. I have a theory here. I see a lot of people who are at, whenever I go into Red Mango, I tend to find that there aren't as many men out there or males out there. There are more females. So let's just put this to test out here. Let's look in our data and see if, in fact, Froyo is preferred more by women than by men. Here we have it. Again, we'll go into gender and we'll grab up female here. I'll call it female, labeling it as such, and verify, move that to rows. Next, let's pick up a few more variables here. Let's think about, again, location. If somebody is in the business of making Froyo or selling Froyo, they might want to know, where do people who consume Froyo live? Okay, so I'm going to make up two geographical areas. Okay, and bear with me here. I'm going to call the Northeast as being New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and I'll throw in Massachusetts as well. I know I'm throwing in Yankees, Red Sox in the same team group, I get it. But let's just call this Northeast for convenience, and we'll call the West as being the states along the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington. Okay. Let me create that profile then. So looking here for the states of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. Now, when you don't have a search keyword in the top, all the variable categories appear on the left. There's a lot of them. If you know what you're looking for, you can just navigate through these options here. In this case, it's simple enough to a point where I think I know what I'm looking for. So I'll take a stab at navigating through the groups out here. I'm looking for geographical location. So I'm going to look under lifestyle demographics. Hopefully I can find it here. In here, there's geographies. That seems like something about location. In here, there is, amongst other things, census regions, so on and so forth. None of that rings a bell. Oh, there's state codes. There we have it. The state codes indicate the various states in our data sets. So here I'm going to look for Connecticut. And then using Control or Command in a Mac, I will select Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey. At this point, I've picked 4 states using, by keeping the Control key pressed down as I selected multiple states. And then I'll try to drag it over to the box below. Now, when I do that, Simmons is going to prompt me and ask me, well, do you want to combine these using an AND, or cancel? It's really about AND or. So we want to know about people who live in New York or New Jersey or Connecticut or Massachusetts, so or is the correct option then. There we have it now. I'll call this group our Northeast group. And verify this, and then bump it over to rows. I'll repeat this for our states from the West. Okay, so again, I'll go into state codes, and this time I'll fetch the states of California, Oregon, and Washington. The same manner as before, I'll drag it over to the bottom here, select OR, and we'll call this West. Verify it, bump it over to rows. Okay, a few more variables. Let's examine one more variable about health. So, again, I have a theory about this. People say that froyo is somehow more healthy than regular ice cream. People like me, for example, eat more froyo because I feel like it's somehow healthier. And, in my own head, I know that as I justify it being healthier, I binge on froyo. So I negate whatever benefits there are relative to ice cream or froyo. But that's a whole different conversation. So let's say let's just think about, is it that people who eat froyo are somehow see themselves as being more healthy, choosing to go to 16 handles or red mango because it's a healthier option? If that is indeed the case, these retailers would be better off positioning or advertising the health benefits of their ice cream or their froyo, I'm sorry. So let's go and look for health. So health, okay, so we're looking for people who say they, have a healthy diet. So, or say health, let's say health options, see what comes up. When you search for health, we're getting many options out here. And let's look for something that would be in the attitude group. Now, the attitudes group is termed lifestyle statements in Simmons. So I'll go here and look for something that's health related out here. So attitudes, opinions, diet, and health, there we are. And here we have a statement about those who agree a lot to the statement. I'll pay just about anything when it concerns my health. I'll spend whatever I have to make myself look younger, and so on and so forth. I consider my diet to be very healthy. That sounds like somebody who cares a lot about their diet. Okay, so let's call these the healthy diet people. So again, just a note, just to verify, I am, this healthy diet variable is those who agree a lot to the statement. I consider my diet to be very healthy. We'll verify and bump it over to rows. Let's get one more health variable in here, one on exercise. Or maybe I can look for exercise from this list. Oops, lost it. Look for exercise from the list that we had before. We'll go back into lifestyle statements and see what we can find out about exercise. I make sure I exercise regularly. Sounds like a germane, relevant kind of variable here. Let's call this exercise regularly. Verify, bump it over to rows, and let's get one more last one here. Let's get politics into the being. Okay, so let's get all people who are politically liberal, okay, or conservative. I'm just going to pick one of the two. So let's go into where we can find this. Okay, there is political outlook. So we're going to find people who are liberal, any liberal, and we'll create a row for them as well. Great. We are now on our way to running our crosstab. So we have all the variables we need in rows to compare and contrast the two consumers of froyo and ice cream, the two segments. So I'm going to run this, hit the run button now, and that's it. Now, as soon as I hit the run button, we are into this spreadsheet view of our results. Now, if at some point in time you want to go back to your old menu where you were before, you can click on dictionary right up here to go back like this. Oops. Maybe, I'm sorry, it's composer, not dictionary. My bad. And that brings us right back here. And then click on back to crosstab to go right back there. Okay, so here we are into the crosstab section now. Bear in mind that Simmons has a timeout. That is not a punishment, but if you spend too much time out here, you might get bumped off the platform. And if that happens, you'll lose all the work you've done. So it makes sense then, whenever you've got your crosstab set up, to pull this off of the platform of Simmons. I'll export this as an Excel file and then open this up in Excel. This way, should my connection drop or should something happen, I have the results that I need to examine. So now we have the same data available in a spreadsheet. Now, we can look at the spreadsheet or look at this view out here. I'm going to toggle back and forth a little bit. Okay. Now, I recommend you should only look at the Excel sheet for two reasons. One, there's a chance you can get bumped off this platform. Two, while you're logged in, somebody else trying to log in is going to be blocked off, because there is a limit to how many slots are open and available to Pace University students. Okay. So with that said, let's examine the results we have here. Our sample consists of 23,000 Americans, which represent 245 million US households. There are 4936 froyo consumers in our sample and 20669 ice cream consumers. I mean, it's pretty much everybody eats ice cream, but about 1/5 of our sample eats, 1/4 approximately eats froyo. That means 48338 American households out of 245 million American households. If you were to divide 48 by 245, that is, compare these two numbers as a ratio, you would get the number you would get by going across rows, which is 19.7%. In other words, this number here represents your percentage when you compare the column to the total. Similarly, for ice cream, 87% approximately of all consumers eat ice cream. 20% of all consumers eat froyo. From this itself, you can tell something noteworthy, that froyo has a lot of market penetration that is left to capitalize on. Ice cream is eaten by pretty much everybody. Now let's go and look at the variables we want to contrast these two groups on. First things first, married. So we know that in our sample, we have equivalent of 48 million Americans. And froyo consumers who are 48 million in America. Of those, 24 million are married. Okay. So again, of the 48 million froyo consumers, 24 million are married. If you want to figure out this ratio, you do 24 million divided by 48 million, giving you the column percentage, 49.7%. Similarly, for ice cream consumers, we have 213 million Americans eating ice cream. Of those 213 million, 115 million are ice cream consumers, are married. 150 million divided by 213 million, that ratio times 100 is 53.9%. So 53.9% of ice cream consumers are married against 49.7% for froyo consumers. That's interesting in itself, right? That means froyo consumers are less likely to be married than ice cream consumers, although the differences are kind of small. Let's move along and examine another variable here, female. So of the 48 million froyo consumers, 29 million are female, which comprises 61%. That means 61% of all froyo consumers are female. On the other hand, for ice cream, the numbers are 111 million out of 213 million, which comprises 52%. Okay. In other words, ice cream consumers are equally likely to be male or female at 52.2%. For froyo, they're largely female. Something useful for 16 handles to know about. Let's go on further down and examine some more interesting variables here. We have your data on the Northeast. Okay, so now that we have gotten a flavor of this format, I'm going to flip over to the Excel spreadsheet so we can take a look at that in that format as well. And as I noted earlier, I'd rather you spend time on the Excel spreadsheet and not in Simmons view. Let me switch over to my Excel spreadsheet right now. Give me a second while I have to get that set up. I'm going to go over to my Excel sheet now. Here's what it looks like. The Simmons dump looks as follows. I'm going to make my columns a little bigger. The same data as you saw in Simmons, but now they don't have the icons. It says horizontal and vertical percentage. We've already examined married, female. Let's move on to Northeast. Okay. So, excuse me. Here we are as far as Northeast goes. We have, excuse me. $29 million people, 30 million approximately in the Northeast, and about 37 million in the West Coast. Of the 29 million that are in the Northeast, 5.8 million are froyo consumers, and 25 million are ice cream consumers. So what that means is that when you compare horizontally, you're going to find out that 19.5% of Northeast consumers, 19.5% of people in the Northeast eat froyo, 86.2% eat ice cream. This is not much different from the national numbers, right? In other words, what we trends we're seeing in the Northeast are not much different from that in the rest of the country. What about those people in California and Washington and Oregon? Well, for them, the numbers are more like 23% and 85.4%. I find this very interesting. While ice cream consumption is pretty much the same as the rest of the country, froyo consumption is much higher. So again, it is telling me that Red Mango or one of those froyo restaurants should be thinking about opening up shop in the West Coast. Bear in mind, I'm making a bit of an extrapolation out here. I'm assuming that since our data is based on store purchases of froyo, what we're finding out in store will also play out in the restaurant scene, ice cream restaurant, or the frozen, yogurt store restaurant scene. Okay, so we're seeing then that the West is somehow a bit more friendly to froyo than is the Northeast. Let's move along now and examine two health variables. One of them is healthy diet. Other one is exercise regularly. The font might get a little small out here. My apologies in advance, but I want to make sure this all fits in one screen. All right, so here we have our numbers again to quickly review. 48 million across the country. 48 million are froyo. 230 million are ice cream consumers. Of them, 6766 agree a lot to the statement, I have a healthy diet. 25 million out of 230 million for ice cream group, again, have a healthy diet. So look at the vertical percentage then, 14% and 11% respectively, 12% respectively. In other words, let's focus attention on these numbers here. Frozen yogurt consumers are more likely to have a healthier diet than ice cream consumers. By now you've got the hang of this, how this works. Again, we compare the number 48 million to 10 million. We can learn about exercise also by comparing these numbers. So our takeaway is 21.6% of people who eat froyo exercise regularly versus 18.4% for ice cream. So maybe a gym sponsorship or offering samples in a gym might make sense for froyo more so than ice cream. Lastly, we can learn a bit about political opinions also, very sensitive topic, but hey, we have data on this. Let's take a look at this. What can we find out here about politics then? Liberal is the variable that reflects people who identify themselves as being either any liberal. They can be very liberal or just liberal. Okay? And we're finding out amongst the frozen yogurt population, that number is 23.1% versus 21.2%. Bottom line, politically speaking, froyo consumers are a bit more liberal than ice cream consumers. Okay. Hopefully that quick tour was helpful to you, and you got a good sense of how you can take 2 seconds and compare them in a set of variables. Quick recap out here. Simmons is an annual survey, a 6-month survey done by MRI Simmons of consumers across 60,000 consumer elements. It's compiled into an interface that you're able to explore by constructing crosstabs or quick reports. We examined a crosstab that compared and contrasted 2 segments across a set of variables. We examined the results in a spreadsheet and drew inferences about frozen yogurt versus ice cream. Thank you.